Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's your commute? How was your commute?
It wasn't so bad now that everything is so salty except
Yeah.
for 422 is getting some potholes.
Oh.
Yes.
I have been out of the house all week, farther to that shovel because she's been farther than this. I was surprised how good the main road was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even our street, which wasn't shoveled or plowed, it was pretty good. It was mostly
Better than the first storm. Maybe it's because the earth had cooled and gotten.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. now. They're trying to fix it.
Yeah. But it's especially hard when you're going, you turn out on the legs and you're trying to go back.
We need to find out. The cloud thing. And then the city.
Right, yeah. We definitely need to do something to do that.
As long as number 6.
I think government people will remember.
Yeah.
Good morning. Welcome to our multi-platform worship service. I am Shay Dively, the intern minister, and I use she, her pronouns. And it is my honor to be co-leading our service today together with Reverend McKinley, our settled minister, Janet, our worship associate, and a big thank you, and Elizabeth Ann, our religious educator, and a big thank you to Len and Bruce for providing music today, and of course, as always, to Mike for doing the AV. We ask that you please silence any cell phones so that we may be as present as possible in this space together. If this is your first time joining us, we want to let you know that the restrooms are located in the rear of the sanctuary, and you can either take the steps to the right or the lift to the left, and if you need any assistance, an usher can help you. We are streaming live, and if you are joining us online, you can choose to toggle to the closed captions by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Childcare is available for infants and toddlers, and older children are invited to attend the religious exploration group that will be following the Story for All Ages time. And parents and guardians can pick up kids upstairs after the service. Let's take a breath together on this day after snow with roads that are now clear. Whew, so grateful. This is a Unitarian Universalist congregation, which means we are people of many differences, different faith traditions, different racial identities, different gender expressions, and all different ways of moving in and showing up in the world. And we are a people of togetherness who make covenant promises to act together with love for transformation and healing. We meet in a Universalist sanctuary, which means that everyone is included in our beautiful tapestry of divine love. And we know that we are made more whole by your choice to add your presence today. We have been waiting for you to bring all of your beautiful self here, and we honor that gift. Here we say we are building UU Mount Airy into a beloved community by embracing all souls and nurturing wholeness. And we are in the process of becoming more whole thanks to you and your presence here. And for that, we are truly grateful. May this be the place where you come to be your whole self. May this loving community help you speak your doubts and welcome your questions. May you find transformation and healing. May you leave this place changed for the better, and may you change this place leaving it better. May our gratitude and these intentions be guiding lights for us this morning. Today's service is a dive into the somewhat mysterious bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association, where some of our theological language is spelled out to provide a grounded frame of spirituality for UUs across the world. We enter into this space to articulate how love might be centered in our actions, our beliefs, our practices, and our integrated selves. Today we ask the question, what is love? And start to answer how it calls to us in our own ways. Come, let us enter into this sacred and hallowed time and worship together.
Thank you, Shay. Good morning, friends. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Reverend McKinley. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm glad to be here on this very chilly morning in Philadelphia. We're going to start our service this morning with the lighting of a chalice, which is something we do in Unitarian Universalist congregations. It marks sacred space and time. It invites the Spirit into this place. It reminds us that wherever we are, it is good to be together. We have chalice lighting words from the Reverend James Villa Blake that might be familiar to many of us who have been UUs for a long time. And if you're somewhat new, these are some good words for us to use this morning. So if you are joining us from home and you have a candle or a chalice that you would like to light along with us, as Shay does here in the sanctuary, I invite us to read these words together. Would you read with me? Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Amen. I'm going to invite us to rise in body or in spirit. We're going to sing Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. It's number 126 in the gray hymnal. Thank you, friends. Part of our being a community is learning to hold one another through all of the ups and downs of being human. And we do that here at Mount Airy through participation in a ritual that we call Joys and Sorrows. If this is your first time here, it's pretty simple, and we invite you to participate however you would like. We're going to listen to some music, and if you feel moved, to come up by the side aisle and grab a stone from either the basket at the rear or here at the front. And take a second to feel that stone in your hand and let that stone become whatever you need it to be. Hopes, dreams, joys, sorrows, prayers, wishes. And when you're ready, drop that stone into this bowl of water that symbolizes our community and how we might hold one another. If there's something especially pressing that you're feeling that you would like to share with the congregation, I invite you to speak pretty directly into this microphone and tell us your name and what you are feeling today. As always, a reminder that we are streaming to the internet, so it's not just private to this room, so please be mindful of that. We welcome you to participate however you will. If that is coming forward, great. If that is simply sitting in silence, that is great too. Come, come, whoever you are, the table of joys and sorrows is open.
Hi, I'm Sharon Fisher. My joy is I got to go visit my daughter and meet her boyfriend, and I haven't seen her since before 2020. So it was a nice trip to go to Portland. They were having record cold temperatures and snow, which they're not used to. So many things were shut down, but I had such a wonderful time. And I also want to share some pride. My daughter is getting really involved in advocating for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in public media. And she was recently quoted in an article for some of the work that she's done. So.
Good morning. How you doing, everybody? I guess I'm having a pretty good morning. Just got enrolled into a new school. Yeah. So I should be starting that next week. That's about it.
I'm kind of new here, but I have a daughter who is bipolar, and I'm not sure she can work.
Good morning. My name is Annabelle Garuda. My joy is that I joined an improv dance group at Folkways, our new community, and I'm taking up something I was able to do 50 years ago. So that's a joy, plus it's a lot of fun. And also, I was speaking with Pat DeBrady this morning. She's a long-term member of the church, and she's sending her greetings and asking to be remembered.
Good morning, I'm Jill. I have a joy and a sorrow. My joy is that this is 1 year that I have been attending UU Mount Airy. For all of yous, like a Philly thing, right? So happy about that, amazing, it's been a year. And my sorrow is that my very, very close dear friend Gina lost her mom yesterday, and Gina actually happens to be the music director for a UU congregation near where she lives in Atlantic City. Anyway, we've been friends for 40 years, and her mother was another mother figure for me. She was called Mama D, and she was very, very special, and I'm going to miss her very much.
Invite our folks who are online to share anything else throughout the service, and we will lift it up if you would ask us to. Elizabeth Ann, will you put a few more stones into the bowl for all those joys and sorrows not spoken out loud, held in the quiet of our heart?
Ron.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. A couple of announcements around joys and sorrows. One is that Ron Soper, who's a member here and had a terrible fall earlier this year, is going back in for another surgery on the 30th. It's a pretty serious surgery, so he wanted us to let you all know, and if we can be holding he and Barbara in love and light as they go through this next phase of their journey together, that would be wonderful. And secondly, next Sunday at 2 p.m., we are gathering to say goodbye and I love you to Ethne Ross for our memorial next Sunday That'll be held here at 2 p.m. So Ethnie's family will be coming up and we'll be able to celebrate her here. We've already had the memorial out at Folkways where she was living, and this is our chance to do it in our tradition. So I wanted to make you aware of those things. I invite us to take a breath together, friends. Today's service is around love, and I'm inviting us to open our hearts to let love flow forth beyond the four walls of this building out into the world where it is needed most. To all of the families and places stricken by violence, by oppression, by war. May love infect those systems of colonization and segregation. And may the isms of this life that seek to separate us be dismantled by the very love that they seek to stamp out. May that be so, and may we be the ones to help make it so. Amen. We have our Story for All Ages as a video from Amanda Gorman.
Welcome to Learn Conmigo. Today we are going to read Something Someday by Amanda Gorman. You are told that this is not a problem, but you're sure there's something wrong. You are told that this cannot be fixed, but you know that you can help. You are told that this is too big for you, but you've seen the tiniest things make a huge difference. You're told that this won't work, but how will you know if you never try? You're told to sit and wait, but you know people have already waited too long. You're told that what's going on is very, very sad, but you're not just sad. You're scared and confused. You're angry. And maybe, just maybe, a little hopeful. You're told not to hope, but you keep hoping anyway. Sometimes you feel like you're all alone, but someday, somewhere, you find a friend, someone who will hope with you, who believes in your dream, someone who will fight with you. You make a promise to each other. You say, there's a problem, but it's our problem together, so we can fix it together. This problem is big, but together, we are bigger. You make another friend and tell them, it's okay to be sad. And they tell you, sometimes we'll lose, but that's all right. We'll try again. And so you do. Together, working. Together, beginning. Over and over and over and over. Until you're no longer beginning. You are winning. Suddenly, there's something you're sure is right. Something you know you helped fix. Something small that changed. Something big. Something that worked. Something that makes you feel hopeful, happy, and loved. Something that is not a dream, but the day you live in. Something that makes you smile as you tell someone else.
Thank you, friends. If we have any young ones who are not already ready to go who would like to join Miss Elizabeth and our Elizabeth Ann and our RE staff, we invite you to head on over while we continue here in the sanctuary. Thank you, Elizabeth Ann. I invite Shay forward for our reading.
Our reading for today is from the final proposed revision to Article 2, Section C-2.1, Purposes. The Unitarian Universalist Association will devote its resources to and use its organizational powers for religious, educational, and humanitarian purposes. Its primary purposes are to assist congregations in their vital ministries, to support and train leaders, both lay and professional, to foster lifelong faith formation and spiritual development, to heal historic injustices, to support and encourage the creation of new Unitarian Universalist communities, and to advance our Unitarian Universalist values in the world. The Unitarian Universalist Association will actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. Section C-2.2, Values and Covenant. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritage of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice. They are seen in an image of a chalice with an overlay of the word love over the flame and 6 outstretched arms that create a circle around each of the core values and form a 6-petal flower shape. Each arm is a different color, and clockwise they are interdependence, orange, equity, red, transformation, purple, pluralism, blue, generosity, green, and justice, yellow.
Good morning. The theme of this month's service coincides with the evolving relationship I've been having with love. In thinking about the evolving and central role that love plays in the Unitarian Universalist faith, I got to thinking about my relationship with love and how love of self is central to all love. I've long thought that not loving ourselves, and unfortunately sometimes hating ourselves, or parts of ourselves, is the root cause of harboring hatred toward others. When I heard Toni Morrison's quote, "If you can only be tall because someone else is on their knees, then you have a serious problem," and white people have a very, very serious problem, I immediately related to him. One of the things that drew me to Unitarian Universalism is the first principle, which talks about the inherent worth and dignity of every person. As a writer, I may have thought that I had it figured out. The love of the self has to come first because, as I've long been aware, you can't do anything else if you don't take care of yourself first. I've also long been aware, as a writer, you have to love all your characters, even your most villainous ones, for the writing to be relatable. From a Buddhist perspective, if you hate your characters or other people, there is a strong possibility that you are projecting part of yourself onto them and that you're limiting yourself with self-hatred. But recently, it has occurred to me through the self-examination of my writing that I still have some work to do on loving myself first. I also recognize that I have to consciously work on myself. And remember that I am secure in myself and that this is connected to a sense of belonging to myself and being at home in the world. Recently, in a Qigong class with my teacher, Jane Halting, who you may remember as our music director emeritus, she mentioned that we have a sea of chi inside of us, which is always there. This boundless energy, our life force, that she spoke of is located in our bellies, about 2 inches below our belly button. This prompted me to come up with a meditation in which I send myself love. Since we're taught not to love ourselves, or especially for women, to put others first, I thought you may benefit from doing this meditation with me. If you feel so inclined, put one hand over your heart and place your other hand about 2 inches below your belly button. Begin by sending yourself kindness. You can think of the word kindness and let it resonate around inside of your body. Then picture the love you have for yourself, radiating behind your belly button in a large ball, and then radiating down your limbs, your fingers and toes, as you silently say or aloud, I love myself. We'll begin when I ring the bell and end when I sound the bell again. Put one hand on your heart and say, I send myself kindness. Then with the other hand, just below the belly button, visualize a golden orb inside of you that is filled with love. See it filling your abdomen, stomach, and chest cavity, and then filling your extremities also. If you want, you can say aloud with me, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Thank you. May we all remember the power of love and the importance of loving ourselves first. After all, love is a major reason we come here, to be together and to remember that with love on our side, we can go into the world and help to heal it. Namaste.
Thank you, Janet. We invite you to remain as you are to sing hymn number 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
Thank you, friends. Mike, could you bring my microphone up just a touch, please? Doing a little more informal setting because I've been walking around in the snow and my legs are tired. I usually walk around up here. We have been speaking words from the UUA bylaws today, which is always a very exciting topic for anyone, whether you are new here or been here for a long time. And that might seem a little strange even for us, but there is a real important point to it. So I'm going to read you this article. This is from the UU World, which is the official UU newspaper magazine. There are few issues concerning UUs on which we can agree with one another. Are we a denomination that is a single religious entity or merely an association of independent congregations? Is the congregation's independence that we call congregational polity a sacrosanct principle, or must it yield to our commitment to racial justice? Do we call the places where we gather for worship churches or meeting halls? Indeed, do we even do worship? These are all perennial subjects, ever ripe for debate, but few questions cause us as much discomfort as what to say when asked what UUs believe. After all, we don't all believe the same thing, but even as we vehemently reject any creed, we seem to be forever searching for some verbal formula about which all, or at least most of us, can say, yeah, that's what I more or less believe. The importance of being able to express the set of shared core beliefs was well described by the Reverend Eugene Pickett when he assumed the presidency of the UUA in 1979. Referring to the problems facing the denomination, his predecessor had just died after less than 2 years in office, he said, "The deeper malaise lies in our confusion as to what word we have to spread. The old watchwords of liberalism, freedom, reason, tolerance, worthy though they may be, are simply not catching the imagination of the contemporary world. They describe a process for approaching the religious depths, but they testify to no intimate acquaintance with the depths themselves. If we are ever to speak to a new age, we must supplement our seeking with some profound religious finds." This is the origin statement of the 7 principles that many of us know. This is where they came from. They had been used in earlier versions of the founding documents of the Unitarian Universalist Association, but there was a lot of contention revolving around whether to include such phrases as love to God and love to man, and a reference to our Judeo-Christian heritage. So the compromise version, changed our to thee heritage, was finally hammered out after much debate. So by 1984, the principles and purposes have been more or less unchanged since then. This article says, since 1984, it's with some amazement that the principles and purposes that replaced the original wording in 1984 not only were adopted nearly unanimously, but they have lasted virtually unchanged for 15 years. That was written 25 years ago, that article. So for 40 years, those words have been mostly unchanged. Think about how much has changed in the rest of the world in 40 years. Think about how much has changed in the technological world, our understanding of science, our understanding of history, our understanding of our own bodies, our understanding of race and racism. How much has that changed in the last 5 years, much less the last 40? So that is the context for the proposed Article 2 revision of the UUA bylaws that Shay read to us earlier. This is a new version of what is in the UUA bylaws, which is where some of our theological concepts are listed. You might say, well, that is kind of strange that in the bylaws there is theology, but, religious institution, I guess. I would also say that I think the point of having religious spiritual language there is that in the UU context, I like to say that everything we do is spiritual, that everything we do is religious. That's one of my core beliefs, is that every human being is in fact religious, even if you don't identify with some kind of theistic interpretation, even if you don't believe in a God. I think you are still religious. People argue with me about that, but I'm pretty set in my ways. I believe it's a fundamental quality of being human to be religious, to look for connection beyond us, between us. I think that's what it means to be alive, to look for connection with the universe, with God, with mystery. So if you're wondering why we're talking about the bylaws, well, they're spiritual too. And your second question might be, what does it mean that it's being rewritten? Why are we spending some time talking about this? That's another good question. Because it's about change. And change can be really hard. For me, the changing of this language in our bylaws gives us a chance to do what Eugene Pickett was talking about, to speak a new word to the world. We went through this process in thinking about the name change of this congregation and thinking, how do we sum up what Unitarian Universalism is to people who are walking by on the street? How do we explain what that is in as few words as possible? And it's pretty hard, right? So the 8 principles here, 7 principles, lots of places, are a pretty good version. And a fun test is whether those people who have been here for a long time can name all 7 principles, word for word. There's still a lot of words. I think we all kind of understand the concepts. Janet spoke about the first principle and her reflection. And the rewriting of the Article 2 section of the bylaws posits, instead of a list of sources of inspiration for Unitarian Universalism and then the listing of the 7 principles word for word, has this really cool graphic that's on the front of your order of service and a perhaps more simple list of 7 guiding values, 7 words. 6 words on the outside of love that is in the center. That's a really helpful graphic for me to look at, and I hope it is helpful for you. That these 7 words are more fully fleshed out in the rest of the bylaws. We didn't read the whole thing because it's quite long. But if you were trying to think of how do I explain Unitarian Universalism, what if I had 7 words? That sounds pretty good. That helped me out a lot, I could tell you. But the important piece is that the words around the outside can go in any order. You don't have to memorize an order of things. It's most important to remember that love is at the center. The words used in the new bylaws proposed are liberating love. That liberating love is at the center of everything that we do. That everything is spiritual and that liberating love is at the center of that spirituality. For those of us who serve in historically Universalist congregations, we might call it Universalist love, or love with a capital L. That's what they're pointing to. The argument that Unitarian Universalists had in 1964 over the merger of 2 denominations, it was about love and how that love is expressed. Love for God, love for others. For the shared history of 2 groups. Love dating back to the Jewish and Christian traditions of some strands of Unitarian Universalism, and love that is at the center of the other strands from our indigenous, African, and Eastern religious siblings. That universal love, that is the glue of our covenant. Not in what we believe, but in how we act. And as I've said before, I'd bet $1 million that most UUs would say they believe in love. It's probably the closest we could get to a full consensus. And if that is true, isn't it weird that love is not in the 7 principles? Have we ever thought about that? And how that dates back to this discussion in 1964 over how to express the love that we all hold. The old watchwords, liberalism, freedom, reason, tolerance. For a long time, that was kind of the UU thing, right? Freedom of belief, freedom of conscience, freedom from a minister who is telling you what to do, freedom from some kind of church hierarchy telling you what to do, and perhaps sometimes freedom from responsibility to act with love in the best of ways, right? That is the flip side of the wonderful, beautiful things about individualism and liberalism, right? We value that sense of uniqueness and identity, that anti-authoritarianism that was coming out of the 1960s in America. Can you think of some other things that were going on then, right? It makes sense. But I can't help but wonder if that emphasis on individualism and individual freedom and individual freedom of conscience and freedom from perhaps responsibility or real commitment to others outside of your own little sphere, I cannot help but wonder if that led to what I call a great siloing of Unitarian Universalists, of cutting us off from other religious groups and from being a part of other social movements in really real ways. Unitarian Universalists were involved in the civil rights movement, that's absolutely true. And I wonder if it might have been different if we had had more of an emphasis on connection and reaching across different belief systems rather than just internalizing. As UUs, we have moved towards beloved community for a long, long time. Sometimes with little bitty steps, sometimes with bigger strides. Constantly been trying to find ways to articulate this vision of what this place is and what it means to people. That it's supposed to be a safe place and a place that challenges us to do better. That it's supposed to be an open place and a place that refuses to let hate come through the doors. And at the risk of over-focusing on language and the written word, here we are, 40 years after those principles came in their more or less current form, talking about a new way to express them in these 7 words. Love, and then justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependency, and generosity. It took me a little bit to memorize those, but I got it. So I think you could too if you wanted. That's what's being proposed, and that's what's being offered up at our General Assembly, which is the annual meeting of Unitarian Universalists. It was kind of preliminarily passed last year. It has to go through another vote this year. And so we're going to spend some time between now and June, when that General Assembly is going to happen, talking about this. What do we think? What are we feeling about the new theological language in the UUA bylaws? Could you imagine being so excited about something? We're going to focus on each of those words, those guiding values, and talk more about what they mean to us and how they get lived out. But love is perhaps the most important one. That's why it's at the center. And the idea of liberating love, that's a special meaning. And we're going to talk more about that next week. I wanted to try and explain this process to those who have been here for a while, and especially those who are new, as to why we're doing this. And whenever we talk about Article 2, that's what we're talking about. It's the very unsexy name for the section of the bylaws, but it is also about some of our deepest held values. And for those of us who grew up Unitarian Universalist, you might be very attached to the 7 principles. I know people who have tattoos of a 7 with a flame, right? It's very important to some people. And for others, it is something that is on the outside of our walls, right? Change can be hard for anyone. It's especially hard for groups. It's especially hard for groups that are trying to find something concrete to find ourselves anchored to when the world around us is falling apart. Trying to find a rock, a home base, a touchstone to be on in the middle of the storm. I hope this idea of love at the center of everything that we do can be that for us. I want to take a risk here and open up for a few questions. If you have a question about, like, what is Article 2? What is the process for something? Why are we spending time? I wanted to make space for that if you're here or online. We're going to be talking about this more and more. We're going to have some small group sessions, so you don't have to do this in the middle of a worship service if you don't want to. As we talk about each of the values throughout the next few months. Our spiritual themes between now and June are linked to the values that are on the order of service, to the proposed guiding values. There's going to be lots of opportunity to talk about this. But I wanted to say, does anyone have like a question that I might be able to answer in a few short words while we're getting started about what is Article 2, what is being proposed, what does it mean? Are you still confused about what the words are that are on the front of your order of service? What questions do we have? And I used to be a middle school teacher, so I am more than comfortable waiting for someone to raise their hand. Yes, Annabelle. You have a question? Oh, that's a very dangerous proposition. If you would, I would like to get a microphone for you. Sure. There you go.
When I joined this church in 2005, after having been a Methodist most of my life, I did find these principles, as expressed on the back of the bulletin, very confusing, very wordy, very heady. I felt resistance to them because I thought, well, every human being kind of wants to live this way, if you're conscious and trying to be a good human being. And so this is the first time it really hit me how focused our new schemata is with those words, and how much they encompass without having a whole lot of words that you have to think about, because I like it very much. And when I first saw it, I think last spring, I didn't like it so much, but now after hearing your explanation and thinking about it more deeply, I'm very much in favor of this change.
Thanks, Annabelle. We also have other questions? But for the folks who are online, Jane, it has to go through that. Thank you.
I love the simplicity of it. I just think it's going to be so easy for me to explain to people what we believe in. And with a center of love, I love it. Love it.
Thank you, Jane. I was glad to hear appreciation. I wish I could take credit for coming up with it, but I had zero to do with it. Hi, Sandy.
I'm welcoming myself back. I do not have RSV, but I still cough, obviously.
Do you have a question or anything about
yes,
the process?
I do. What I'd like to ask is whether we can have this same picture on the cover of our order of service every time we discuss one of these particular...
Oh, definitely.
That's
one less thing I have to do. Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I like the fact that there's a way for love to escape.
A way for love to escape. Thank you. Something that the Article 2, the folks who put these together, actually, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but their explanation was there's not a set order of these in the same way that there are principles, that the words can go in any order. I have an order in my head, so it's easy for me to keep saying them in the same order, and I'm going to share it with all of you, and then you're only going to be able to say it in that order, but I'm very proud of it. This is one thing I have contributed to the process, but I want to take any more questions about the process, about something we said today. Holly, I'll come to you. Hello.
I'm just curious as to where the principles are going to be placed in this process.
That's a great question.
Because I love them, actually.
Yeah.
When I first saw them, I went, oh, yeah, I got it. I got it.
So this is a question that lots of folks have had. What is happening to the principles? Are they getting rid of the principles? And I guess the answer is, depending on how you look at it, yes and no, right? Will there be the numbered list or enumerated list of principles? No. Are the ideas and even most of the words of the principles still in the bylaws? Yes. Some of them are split up into different values and put in a different order. Sometimes they use different words, and there were real reasons for doing that. So if you're someone who has to see the list of principles, if you feel really attached to it, you might be upset and feel like they're getting rid of the principles. If you look at some of the words, you might see that the language is very much similar. It's just in a different form. So that is kind of up to you to decide. I will say, For example, the first principle talks about the inherent worth and dignity. That phrase does not appear exactly as it was, specifically that idea of the worth of a human being. To think about how much is a human being worth is actually a little bit of a troubling concept, especially in a country with a history of selling human beings based on their value and worth. So that word was replaced with worthiness. But so if there was language that was changed, it was for a really good reason. There was a lot of thought put into it. This has been a very, very long process. Let's do Bruce and then Sharon and then Linda.
Just wanted to point out that we as a congregation adopted the 8th principle here for ourselves, and whatever happens to the UUA bylaws as a whole, that's something that we've adopted as that's about dismantling racism and other oppressions by our actions accountably. So that's something that is going to remain a foundation, even though calling it the 8th principle when there aren't 7 in the official bylaws is a little weird, but it's still something that we've done as a group, and so that'll be different for different churches.
Thank you.
Sorry. And part of this comes from that I have friends that are at many different UU organizations and members, and they're saying, why is your congregation taking this topic on so seriously? We haven't even discussed it in our group. And so I'm trying to get better at explaining it, but I have to understand it better before I can explain it very well. So even the process, was it something that happened, the process of developing this format, which I like a lot, did it happen through GA? Did it happen through UUA? Did it happen through multiple committees? How did it come, how did that come into being?
Yes, and yes, I think.
Yeah.
So there's a long history. If you throw the words UUA Article 2 into your favorite search engine, it will take you, there's a lot of info on the Article 2 that has the timeline, it has the history, it has the process they've gone through. Yeah, so it's dating back a few years. This has not been just in the past year.
Part of my understanding is that in the bylaws somewhere, it says that the bylaws have to be reviewed every 15 years.
Correct.
And that that came to someone's awareness, and that's in part how this came about.
Correct.
That, it's time to review the bylaws, let's look at what we've got.
Been about 40 years.
Yeah, right, so we're overdue.
Yes.
Like, we're long overdue on the
Correct.
15-year review. And like most Unitarian Universalist things, it's not just something where you have one meeting and it's done. It takes years to get to reviewing the bylaws every 15 years. So I guess that's part of it, is like, what is the actual process that we have engaged in at this time in the history of Unitarian Universalists?
Yeah, so it has been a process of both big votes at General Assembly, that a vote to even study the idea, and then a vote to not a vote, then an order from the board to create the commission, to do the work, to come up with proposals, then different proposals, lots of voting, lots of feedback, another vote at General Assembly, and there's still another vote to go at another General Assembly. So there's a long process.
I just have a question about our process. Are we going to have a service on each of the?
Yes.
Okay, great, because it's interesting. The word pluralism, I think I know what it means, but it's not a word that we see a lot, so I'm looking forward to a
That will
service
be in May.
unpacking that word.
Yeah. Yep, pluralism will be in May. So much engagement. Who would have thought bylaws were this exciting?
This looks like a T-shirt and maybe a new logo.
Oh, I'll do you one better, Beth.
Right.
I'll do you one better. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap up here, and I'll just share this thing with you. Remembering that love is at the center. If you're feeling kind of iffy about this, maybe this will turn you around. Maybe it'll turn you completely off. I don't know. That's the risk that we take when we shoot from the hip like this. The problem with trying to remember those words that can go in any order, and there's a good theological reason that we say we don't always put justice first or equity first or generosity last, right? I will say, however, I was a middle school teacher, and one of the things that we would do was word games. And one of my favorite word games is an anagram, which is where you find all the letters and see what words they make. And I can tell you, if you put love in the center and you look at some of the words around the outside, if you put them in the order justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependency, and generosity, you get Jet Pig. And if you can imagine a pig with a rocket booster strapped on its back, zooming around, spreading love all across the world, you have found what I have contributed to the process. It has been affirmed as the quote-unquote unofficial mascot of the Article 2 Commission, the Jet Pig. Maybe that'll help. A song, I would love a song, merchandise. We need t-shirts. I want other people to get tattoos. It could become a thing. I hope that helps you remember these words. And the point is to have discussion, right? This is not a set in stone deal. It was passed with quite a lot of affirmation at the previous General Assembly, but it's still somewhat, it has been in somewhat of a revision process. I think the final proposed version is now online that you can read, some of which we read today. So I invite you to check it out. And then if you have questions, please ask me if you want to sit down. You don't want to do it in a big group. Or please bring those questions and comments to when we have small group discussion after the next few services where we're talking about these values. We really, really appreciate that. Okay, let's wrap up here. This is a letter from the Article 2 Commission, and we'll end with their words. The Article 2 Study Commission is happy to present to you the final draft of the proposed revision to Article 2, incorporating the amendments passed at General Assembly 2023. Of course, this is not the final version, as there's an opportunity to amend it at General Assembly 2024, as outlined in the UUA bylaws. The process we followed, you can find online. It was balanced by a number of factors: inspirational and aspirational language, legal implications of bylaws language, the need for plain language, and respect for the will of the General Assembly in the voting upon wording. It is a fundamental act of hope to consider revising and revitalizing our agreement together as congregations. Ever since we released our draft for comments last year, we've seen an outpouring of creative energy around what this proposal represents: the chance for current generations of UUs to take an active hand in shaping our faith. It is an opportunity for all of us to draw on the transformative energy of articulating anew what we are about. We come from many paths, but we all put love at the center. In these times, people need that creative joy and the hope that it represents. It is part of practicing skillful love inside our congregations and association so that we can carry that love out into a world that so desperately needs it. May it be so. Thank you. Invite Shay forward to do our offering.
I just want to share that I love talking about Article 2. So that's when you know you're a theology geek. And I just want to remind everyone that we actually touched upon one of the values earlier this year, which was generosity. So now is the time when we collect our offering of financial resources for the good of this community. Ushers, please go ahead and start passing the plates here in the sanctuary. We know there are many ways to give back to this congregation, and we encourage you to find ways that work for you. For giving of financial support, your money or checks put in the plate will be used to fund the ministries of this church. And any pocket change or other money that you designate for Change online, or by putting them in the white envelopes in the pews, will be sent to this month's selected Change for Change organization, Face to Face Germantown. More info is on your screen about how to give. Please know that if this is your first time with us, there's no expectation that you give anything other than a yellow contact form or letting us know how you found us and how we can support you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you, friends. As we get ready to extinguish our chalice here in the sanctuary, we invite you to do so at home. And for all of us to stick around and check out some of the announcements that are coming by on the slides after the service. If you're here in person, we have some coffee and good times together downstairs. That's also where our restrooms are. We invite you to check our Google Calendar and our website for more info on things that are coming forward. The words to extinguish our chalice are adapted from Rosemary Watola Traumer. I invite you to hear these words and take them with you as you leave this place. I wish you the peace that comes when we trust ourselves to meet whatever life brings. I wish you love beyond the happiest of endings, the kind of love that seeps into everything, no matter where the story goes. Our closing hymn is number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Bruce is going to lead us. Would you rise in body or in spirit, please, and sing along, number 131.
There we go. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Thank you, friends. Go with these words. Simply and profoundly, the work of love is to love. Such aliveness, for in that act the universe comes alive. Such aliveness is the space that opens between us. And when two bow and touch in such a true way, love can change the world. May it be so. Amen. Have a great week, everyone.